Perhaps the pictures tell the story. Tuesday night, after a Los Angeles jury awards the family of Ron Goldman $8.5 million in compensatory damages, that after finding O.J. Simpson liable for his death at Nicole Brown Simpson's condominium, the jury also finds Simpson responsible of intentionally battering his former wife, Nicole. Now the jury has to decide on the amount of punitive damages. But will O.J. declare bankruptcy, many are asking, before the Goldmans and the Browns get a cent? Well, today we're going to hear from a member of O.J.'s original dream team, Alan Dershowitz.
We ended up with an all-white jury. The only black on that jury turned out to be somebody who had connections with the district attorney's office.
New York Post columnist Steve Dunleavy is going to also join us, who says that justice still has not been served.
If indeed Johnny Cochran rightfully says in the criminal trial that if the gloves don't fit, you have to acquit, then if the shoes are a fit, you have to convict.
And we're also going to try to answer the question, was O.J. his own worst enemy on the stand? Also coming up, Burton Katz and Leo Terrell.
Rolonda, I want to tell everyone the truth. They read a big story. No, I am going to tell the truth. There were a bunch of children at that house, and there was food. No, sir. No, I want to finish this.
Joining us now are former Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Burton Katz and O.J.'s good friend and supporter, Los Angeles civil trial attorney Leo Terrell. Gentlemen, welcome to the show again this Friday.
Thank
you. Leo, he has come to trust you over the years as having been his good friend. What do you see behind the scenes? What happened after that verdict? What is O.J. Simpson saying?
Well, I went over to O.J.'s house that same evening, the evening of the verdict, and Starr correctly pointed out there was no anger, there was no screaming, there was no tears. A very, very calm family, and it was very family-oriented. And I can tell you right now, they're hurting inside. There's no question about that. But they expected this verdict. And the key here, I want everyone to understand this, that O.J. Simpson went home to his family, went home to Justin and Cindy, and that is his focus. And I think it's very, very important that he may have lost his case, but he has his children. Unfortunately, Rolonda, the talk is now that the Brown family will attempt to take the kids away again. That's so terrible because the kids should not be a pawn in this case at all.
Okay. When we come back, Bert, I want to talk with you because what I'm hearing a lot of people saying is there are many who say that this whole saga has proven to us that our justice system does work. There are others who say it shows the travesties that we have in our system. I want you to remark on that. What does it say about our judicial system? Also, when we come back, a member of O.J.'s criminal defense dream team, Alan Dershowitz, many of you may remember, he's coming on and he says it's the 30 pictures of O.J. wearing those Bruno Mali shoes he claimed he didn't have that really did him in. We'll also hear from our audience right after this. He's accused of acting white.
I was ostracized. I was called an Uncle Tom.
He's accused of acting black.
I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know what acting black is.
Racial confusion on Rolonda. Next guest says, joining us now via satellite from Boston, Massachusetts, is a criminal defense attorney, a member of O.J.'s criminal defense dream team, and the author of the book, Reasonable Doubts. Welcome, Alan Dershowitz, everybody. We're going to get back to what all of this says about our justice system, but I'm very curious to hear what you think about those denials about those very popular shoes.
Well, let me put it in context. In the criminal case, as I explain in my book, Reasonable Doubts, the reason we won and they lost is we had credibility. We put on world-class science experts. We didn't put on any eyewitnesses who might have not been telling the truth. We, in fact, dropped 2 eyewitnesses from our witness list. They put on Fuhrman and Van Adder. The jury didn't believe Fuhrman and Van Adder, and it had a spillover effect. The jury then said, if we don't believe 2 of the prosecution's witnesses, why should we believe the rest of their evidence? In the civil case, the opposite happened. Simpson's lawyer claimed in his opening that he would prove that the photograph was a phony. When he couldn't do that, then I think the jury may have said, look, they told us they would prove 1 piece of evidence was phony. They didn't succeed in doing that. Why should we believe them when they say evidence may have been tampered with and evidence was planted? I think it had a spillover effect. It affected the credibility, and without credibility on the side of your case, you can't win.
What do you think all of this does say? And Bert, I know I posed this question to you. I want to hear from you as well. What does this say about our justice system? Do you think it shows our system in its glory or in its worst?
Well, I think it shows that we have a system in which there are differences depending on whether the jury is predominantly black or the jury is predominantly white. And that shouldn't be surprising. People, jurors, and everybody else see the world through the prism of their own experience. It's not only race. For example, in the Lorena Bobbitt case, you remember that case?
Sure.
In Lorena Bobbitt, the country was divided along gender lines. If she had had a jury of all 12 men, I don't think she would have been acquitted. If she had had a jury of 12 women, they received that more sympathetically. African American jurors who come from the inner city and have experience with policemen may look at evidence planting differently than suburban whites who have only been respectfully treated by policemen. That's a fact of life, and these two verdicts reflect that fact of life.
A lot of support here, Alan. A lot of support. Bert, let's hear your comments as well. Your impressions of what this showed us about our justice system.
Well, I think Alan's basic statements are absolutely correct. We know that we see through the prism of our own experiences, and obviously the experience of African Americans, unfortunately, who have been abused by excessive police conduct and actually framed by police is clear and will resonate within their verdicts. But let me explain, there really is a difference between the two cases. The case was derailed by the use of Fuhrman. I know that Alan, and I respectfully disagree with Alan, but I believe that Fuhrman issue derailed the jury. The racial animus, the jump from racial animus to planning simply wasn't factually supported. And thus what it did, it created in the minds of the jurors such that they want payback time. In addition to which, Johnny and a dear friend of mine, a very able and brilliant lawyer, was able to argue to the jury and exhort them to send a message beyond the confines of Department 103. Now let's jump to the civil case. They had the advantage of the depositions, they had the advantage of hindsight and what the prosecution did wrong, and they had the advantage of O.J., who was caught in, I believe, many inconsistencies and perhaps lies, and the burden of proof was much less, meaning by preponderance of evidence. So clearly you can explain the civil verdict. It's more problematic with me with respect to the criminal verdict.
From the audience now.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, Leo. My question is to all the lawyers up there. This civil trial was filed in Santa Monica, the suburb of Los Angeles. Knowing that's the case, could O.J. really get a fair trial instead of being in Los Angeles? Because we're here in New York, and I feel that if this incident happened in Manhattan, the lawyers for the Browns and the Goldmans would have filed this civil court in the Hamptons to ensure that no blacks or Hispanics could really be on this trial. And that's the case.
Leo, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think it's very clear. You know, I think the caller makes a very good point. I mean, the viewer makes a very good point. What is bothersome to me is that many people after the criminal case attack the verdict by saying the jury was uneducated and basically said they got off because they were black jurors. There was reasonable doubt in that case. Any attorney, Alan stated it and Bert stated it. However, in this case here, I haven't heard a single commentator attack the education level of this jury. I haven't heard them attack the intelligence level of this jury. And you know, that's a smack of racism because apparently there is no problem accepting a verdict from this white jury. And that is very bothersome.
You know, there's one point, though, Rolonda, that you should know.
Very bothersome.
That Baker excused every white he could excuse and ran out of his peremptories. So understand that it was going both ways, and I don't think that's proper, that we are going to choose on the basis of race or
that's
color.
What was done.
I want us to see.
And I know race was a factor in the selection of the jury.
But Alan, the point is that Baker excused every white that he could. Now, is that right?
But look what we ended up with. We ended up with an all-white jury. The only black on that jury turned out to be somebody who had connections with the district attorney's office. There's something wrong with the system where there's a 40% black jury pool and not a single black on the jury.
Absolutely.
It takes us back to the days when we had
absolutely correct.
Are whites incapable?
I'll let you get in there in just a minute. I've got to take a quick break. Also, when we come back, New York Post columnist Steve Dunleavy is going to join us. And he's the one who says he doesn't think justice has been served yet. We'll talk with him about that and get your comment right after this. Okay, and I'll let you
Today's 2.5 years, a little over 2.5 years, and we finally have justice for Ron and Nicole. And it was done with honesty and dignity, complete truth, and our family is grateful for a verdict of responsibility, which is all we ever wanted. And we have it, thank God.
He's accused of acting white.
I was ostracized. I was called an Uncle Tommy.
He's accused of acting black.
I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know what acting black is.
Racial confusion on Rolonda. And that's just to start with. Now the jury goes back to decide on the punitive damages. Tuesday night, New York Post columnist Steve Dunleavy was there to witness it all. Steve is joining us now via satellite. Steve, nice to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Rolonda.
Welcome. Steve, you were there. What did you see? What was the mood?
First of all, as your previous and very, very sharp guest said, it was like chaos. And when I spoke to Fred Goldman, he said, Ron knows and Ron is proud of us. It was a very moving moment. It was something that struck us all, people like myself and many, many hundreds of others who had gone through the criminal trial and saw the pain of both families, the celebration of O.J. Simpson when he was acquitted, and the pain of the Goldmans when they saw O.J. Simpson walking as a free man. It was chaos, very emotional, and it was a moment that moved us all. I have to say, of course, that in the press corps, largely white, they cheered, and of course it comes back to the point of race. We would be Pollyanna to think that this was not divided by race. However, if I had been in a black jury, mostly black jury, as a white person, given the absolute abominable prosecution case that the prosecutors put on, I would have voted beyond reasonable doubt that O.J. Simpson should go free. However, with a different burden of proof and certainly a different jury, I would have certainly voted O.J. Simpson as guilty as sin.
Why don't you think there was justice then, if you would have voted to let him free after the first trial?
After the first trial, I would have said that the way the prosecution handled the prosecution, I could not vote beyond reasonable doubt because the prosecution aborted their whole prosecution case.
But doesn't justice require that a verdict be based on the evidence presented to the jury? And wasn't the first jury therefore correct? You acknowledge that you would have voted that very way.
Absolutely.
Isn't that justice?
Absolutely, no question about it. I would have voted with the mostly all-black jury because it's beyond reasonable doubt.
Why are you and your colleagues so critical?
Absolutely.
Why are you and your colleagues
Wait, let
so
Alan finish and then Hubert.
Why are you and your colleagues then so critical of the defense bar and of the defense attorneys in this case for helping to produce justice?
Well, now we're talking about a civil trial right now.
No, I'm talking about the criminal case. Why are you and your colleagues, particularly you, so critical of the criminal defense lawyers in the criminal case who achieved justice?
I think you're out with the pixies because you obviously haven't studied me too closely in my columns.
Oh, wait a minute. I want to jump in. I study your column, and ladies and gentlemen, the New York Post ran a phony story on Sunday about O.J. Simpson having a Pro Bowl party. Now, Dunleavy, you know me, and I was at that house. And hold on, I want to tell everyone the truth. They ran a big story.
Don't get hysterical.
I am going to tell the truth. There were a bunch of children at that house, and there was food. No, sir.
Steve, what you have to understand is Leo does this every Friday.
Calm it down, old boy.
If you don't believe me, listeners, you go into that audio room. There was no objectivity. All the reporters, including Dunleavy, were laughing at the defense team during this testimony. It was Comedy Central where all the reporters got together in this case. There was no objectivity in this civil case.
Let Steve respond.
No, I want to make one other point. He ran a story on Sunday. That O.J. Simpson was having a Pro Bowl party. That was not true. He had children over there, and they catered in food, and they ran that phony story in the paper on Monday.
Now listen, take your lithium.
Phony. No objectivity.
Please let Steve respond. Steve, respond. Leo, let Steve respond.
They party with the other side. No objectivity.
Leo, let Steven respond. Go,
no
Steve.
Objectivity.
Now, take your lithium or whatever else you take to calm down.
Leo, please respect the process of our talk show.
Now, Leo, I keep on wanting to know how much you get paid for all this. You told me you didn't get paid.
Zero.
Oh,
check my record. Run a story on me. Run a story. Zero.
If I check your record, Leo, I may find something you don't want me to find, but I'll leave that to you.
Go ahead.
But now let's talk about.
One from the audience. Jump in.
Yes. I'd like to respond to I'd like to respond to Mr. Dershowitz and Judge
Dershowitz?
Katz. Mr. Dershowitz, I'm sorry.
Go right ahead.
I'm speaking on the fact that you said that there were the two juries, one black and one white. When they got the not guilty verdict because of the evidence, everybody was ready to throw up. The system had to be changed, and nobody, nobody could believe that these jurors, they were uneducated, they were dumb. But now that the white jurors found him guilty, everybody's happy and want to go back to holding hands, and I don't understand that. I would like you to respond to that.
I'm going to let you guys respond. I got to take another break, and when we come back, was O.J. his own worst enemy on the stand?
Down. For God's sake, give him what he needs most to calm down. I don't know what he takes.
Oh, there's another rumor.
Wait, you guys, wait. I gotta go to a commercial break, so we'll be back in a minute. We'll be back.
That's an accusation you can't back up.
I'm gonna start with you. Are you somebody who believes in separating the races, saying that blacks and whites should not be together? If so, give us a call at 1-900-9-ROSHOW or send email to roshow@aol.com. If you are part of what we have started here, this OJ Friday, some of my friends say, I look forward to Friday on the Rolonda Show because it's always a good argument and a good exchange of ideas. We do get a little rowdy here because there's so much passion involved, because it does affect us. It's our justice system. It talks about so many things that affect so many of us. This man was taken. What did you want to say?
Well, I just wanted to ask both Judge Katz and Mr. Dershowitz, you talk about reversible error and self-incrimination. Why was O.J. in the criminal trial, he wasn't forced to testify, but in the civil trial, all of a sudden now he has to testify, and it made it a lot worse for him.
Because
possibly.
under the
So why is that? Why did it have to be done that way?
Bert?
Well, under the Constitution, the Fifth Amendment protects O.J. in a criminal trial from being a witness against himself. And this is a civil case. This has nothing to do with it. He's not subject to double jeopardy. So therefore, there would be no Fifth Amendment privilege, and he must be compelled to testify if the plaintiff calls him.
Want to hear an interesting twist on that?
Yes, Alan.
Had his lawyers been clever, they might have tried the following, and only in California would it have worked. Put him on the witness stand, have him testify only on direct, then refuse to testify on cross-examination, take the Fifth Amendment privately in front of the jury, and citing the precedent of the Fuhrman case, saying the jury can now never learn why he took the Fifth Amendment and must simply be allowed to speculate and guess about that.
Alan, that would have been misconduct of the lawyers.
The judge did that in the Fuhrman case. And that is now the absurd California precedent established by Judge Ito, that somebody can testify on direct, falsely, not Simpson, I'm talking about Fuhrman, then refuse to testify when new evidence surfaces, and under California's absurd law, if Judge Ito was correct, he can now, the jury never learns about it.
Good point, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
The point, if I can answer Alan, Alan is correct.
Absolutely
Alan is correct with respect to the absurdity of the criminal ruling. I would have stricken at least all of the testimony.
You're not Judge Ito.
No, that's certainly one of the...
Alan's absolutely correct.
You know what? I'm glad I'm not Judge Ito.
I'm glad Alan's on the
But
show.
the point is, Alan, in the civil case, they wouldn't have been able to do that, and it would have been misconduct, obviously, of the lawyers to engage in that type of conduct in front of the jury.
The other important point we have to remember is that California judges are very much a part of the political process. Did you see today's news is that the Brown family is now moving to try to have the judge that gave custody to O.J. Simpson recalled and removed from the bench. And remember that in California, judges, Rose Bird and others, who ruled in favor of criminal defendants in capital cases, primarily African American and Hispanic defendants, had themselves removed from the bench by the electorate. The specter of political removal hangs over all these cases.
What about Harold Barr, Alan? Judge Harold Barr in New York, where a federal judge who's a life appointee.
I agree.
That happened in New York.
I agree with you, but they can't be removed from office. There's no vote. Believe me, if there were a vote, Harold Brown would have been removed from office.
They were talking about impeaching him.
I know. The problem is now we have an appeal. Very good appellate issues. I think every appellate lawyer has conceded there are very good appellate issues, and yet very few people believe this case will be reversed because these judges are afraid to reverse a conviction involving O.J. Simpson.
He's absolutely right.
From the audience.
Is a virus in America. there are 3 types of viruses, and I think they all should be banned. Skinheadism, neo-Nazism, and Ku Klux Klanism. It's time to ban them from the United States of America.
Now, what made you think of that in the midst of all of this? What made
because
you
that's what it's based on.
But I mean, yeah, but you know,
it's based on.
but because but that maybe that's what I was talking about earlier. How this one case just hits everything in us, makes all that stuff come up.
And
so,
I mean, ban racism from everybody, black, everybody, white, everybody.
Right. Would be nice. You want to say something? Yeah. Another question from our audience here.
I just wanted to say to Judge Katz, I resented the fact that you wanted to make the analogy that the criminal case was won only because of Mark Fuhrman. If you recall, the jury didn't hear all of the tape, which I thought was more pertinent when he admitted to planting evidence and doing illegal acts while he was on the force. They only brought out the fact that they used the N-word. We as African Americans don't have a problem with that because we know basically a lot of people use that word, including us, and it's not proper. But that was, I don't think that was the deciding factor for the jury.
There was a
and for you to make that point, and only make that point, that all of the experts that they had daily breaking down the DNA and the blood and the sloppy work that the officers did in the forensic case. I mean, I can't, how you're ignoring all of that as if that's not pertinent is not right.
Let her respond.
First of all, first of all, I'm not. First of all, I'm not ignoring.
Yes, he is.
Let me give you the first thing. The judge admonishes the jury every day, you're not to discuss this case amongst yourselves or to form or express any fixed opinion of the cause finally submitted to you. Their bags were packed before they started the deliberation process. They took an hour and let me finish. They took an hour and a half to deliberate because they had to have lunch and have read back. And then after 9 months of testimony, 45,000 pages of transcripts, 1,250 exhibits, and 133 witnesses, they decide that there's reasonable doubt. Give me a break.
When we come back, will O.J. declare bankruptcy? And what happens next? Will there be appeals after appeals when the jury rules? Also, we've got to talk about those punitive damages that are coming up. We'll be right back in a minute, everybody. You're going to be in the New York area and would like free tickets to Rolonda? Well, please call us at 212-650-2060. Joining us now is criminal and civil defense attorney Darnay Hoffman and attorney Pamela Hayes, who specializes in criminal defense litigation. I want to throw this question out to the both of you. Do you think that O.J. on the stand did himself in?
I don't think O.J. was prepared as well as he could have been in terms of his testimony. The way it was projected, the emphasis, I think he had to embrace certain things, and unfortunately he didn't, and they hammered him for it. I don't think they proved the case that he killed these people. I think this is about the empire striking back, that they are, you know, penalizing him for beating Nicole, penalizing for him for not saying he did it, and, you know, they just took it to a real strange extent.
Darnay, do you agree with that?
Yes, to a great degree. I think that even though O.J. Simpson may have been his own worst enemy in the first part of his testimony, I think he recovered very well in the second half of the trial. However, I think what makes this trial a travesty is the fact that O.J. Simpson was never allowed to put on a defense. Whatever you have to say about the civil case and whether it's fair to try people after they've been acquitted, whether or not you believe that when it's over in the criminal case, which is my belief, I'm a minority here.
How about Rodney King? How about the Rodney King case? Should the officers have been retried under civil rights?
This is a lot of rubbish. When Bernie Goetz was acquitted in a criminal case, he certainly had to...
He wasn't acquitted in a criminal case. He was found guilty of a misdemeanor conviction, which you could take into court and get a judgment for. You got to get it right, Steve.
He was found innocent. No. One second. Let's get the facts straight. When Bernie Goetz was found not guilty in the criminal case for shooting those lads in the subway train, of course, as the law would go, he had to be subject to an absolute civil case which found against him. What goes for whites goes for blacks, goes for Latinos, goes even for Australians. Now, Rolando, I know you're very busy giving Leo mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, but let's...
Why mention me? What kind of statement is that?
let's
What kind of
look.
statement?
Believe me,
Because you're
Leo
hysterical.
can handle himself.
You know, the New York Post is not
Let's
New
get,
York
let's
Post
get,
is a
let's
trash-
get to the basis.
Made a
Let's-
misrepresentation on that
let's-
Sunday article,
Let's
and you
get
should
to the
apologize to
basis.
O.J. Simpson.
Let's
You know,
get
the
to
New
the
York-
basis of Leo's wrong-mindedness and the trash he
Right,
speaks.
right, the New York
And we
Post.
only have to look to one
Down with the
thing.
New York Post.
If indeed Johnny Cochran rightfully says in the criminal trial that if the gloves don't fit, you have to acquit, then if the shoes are a fit, you have to convict.
He never
now,
tried
without
on
a
the
doubt,
shoes, Steve. They
sorry?
never had anybody from Bruno Magni come and say, these are our shoes. If you look at the shoes that the expert witness put on and the shoes that were in those photos, they're different. Those shoes in the
yeah, I
photos
saw
look
the
like
I saw the
hush
expert
puppies.
witness. I saw the expert witness for the defense. The expert witness for the defense, when he saw one picture, some gentleman from Philadelphia who's made a life of conspiracy theories and was not even anywhere near an expert, said, oh, it's a fake. Suddenly, 30 pictures come up, and the defense doesn't even put on rebuttal. This is purely a case of
Hey,
if
Steve, are you
the
gonna
shoes
retract-
are fit, then you got to convict.
And meanwhile,
You okay, Leo?
sales of those shoes go up 30% worldwide. Your question, sir.
Yes, I have a question. If the lady whose daughter worked in the DA's office was let go in the trial, why wasn't there a mistrial?
Well, can I answer that
Sure,
question?
absolutely, Alan.
I think that there's a very serious issue here. I don't think anybody in this country believes that this daughter who worked for the DA's office and worked for Chris Darden, A, didn't tell people in the DA's office that her mother was serving on the jury early on. I think there has to be an investigation. When did the DA's office know about it? Who in the DA's office know about it? Second, no way that this young woman didn't tell her mother things that she learned from working in the DA's office. So the DA's perspective was in that jury room, and unless and until we have a full hearing, we have to assume the worst. We have to assume that maybe inadvertently, but she was a DA plant in that jury.
Oh, Alan. Wait a minute. This, I can't.
Let's have a hearing.
Excuse me, Alan. Excuse me, Alan.
Wait a minute, everybody's talking at once.
Alan, finish it.
Bert,
Let Alan
Leo,
finish.
and Steve all have something to say. I'm going to give you each a chance. I can't even get a word in. When we come back, also next, a lot of folks are saying, can't they retry O.J. for the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman? Well, there's some people who say that, and some people want to understand, what does double jeopardy mean anyway? We're going to explain it right after this. We'll be right back. Outrageous guests are coming back
A lot of black men, they want to escape us.
to get an earful from our viewers.
Does anybody see a shackle on my wife's hand?
Watch Rolonda. Bert, go right ahead. You wanted to respond to something that Alan had just said. Go right ahead.
First of all, the judge gave two curative instructions to the jury, saying that, look, I want you to renew deliberations with a new juror and forget everything you have heard during the first aspect of the deliberation
And you think
process.
they
Wait,
really
let me finish.
listened to that,
Please,
right?
Alan, I let you
No, you
talk.
didn't. You try to cut him off.
But the second point is the next... No, I respect Alan. But the second point is that the next day, he then polled each of the jurors to say, now, have you followed my admonition and have you started the deliberation anew? And is there anything that was done during the deliberation process such that would have impaired your ability to be fair and impartial?
give you
Now,
an
let me
example,
finish
Bert.
one last point, Alan, then I'll keep quiet.
Please,
and the other
keep
point
quiet.
is you're assuming that the district attorney was in the jury room where they were filling out the questionnaire like a fly on the wall and knew that juror had dishonestly filled out the questionnaire.
Let me just give you an example. Let's assume that Chris Darden had told this young woman something negative about Simpson which wasn't admitted in evidence, and this woman told her mother, and the mother mentioned it in the jury room. Now, do you think that a jury is capable of forgetting that? When a judge tells to the jury, don't think about an elephant, they're going to think about an elephant.
There should have been a hearing, Alan.
Ring the bell.
Alan, you're right.
Let's
There
have
should
a
have
hearing to determine that.
You're right, but you know what he did? He said that after the verdict, they can impeach the verdict.
Oh, for God's sake, Gil
Bert.
Garcetti, who's got the IQ of his shoe size, is not very smart, but he's not dumb enough to plant someone. I quite agree. I quite agree.
Steve, the only reason they got her out of there is because they knew what was going to happen.
Oh,
and
I
if she
quite agree.
hadn't
Now
been
listen,
sitting
I quite
there
agree.
with that verdict, that it would have been out of the window.
Honey,
And that's why
I
they
quite agree
moved.
that I can't believe
Now.
that girl did not talk and say that, hey, my mother's on the jury. I quite agree. But the idea that Gilgar said he planting that, I mean, you're out with the pixies, you're between the leprechauns that think that. Please, God,
she was a plant. She was there, and she was influenced by the attitudes of the DA's office. And you should do good investigative journalism now on when the DA's office learned about it.
From the audience.
This goes to Bert. How can you explain when an all-white jury acquits white cops when they see it on a videotape of them beating a black man, but yet they have circumstantial evidence of a black man supposedly killing a white woman and a white man, and they find them liable? Explain that.
Well, first of all,
Well, are you making this
I'm going to explain it.
Are you really thinking
can I answer the question?
that O.J. Simpson was a cultural African-American?
Excuse me.
Ask whether they knew him down in Normandy and Florence.
I
They
thought
never
the
saw him
question
in
was
Normandy and
asked of
Florence.
me.
They saw him in the Riviera Country Club with his white friends. He was white as a milk bottle. He's whiter than I am.
Can I please
Steve, I want
answer
to
the
thank
question?
you very much for joining us. I know that you have to dash. We're going to bring Star Jones up here next. You can stay if you want. We'll be right back with the latest on the custody issue as well and continue with our audience members in just a moment. How much will O.J. have to pay, and will he go bankrupt? Those are the types of things. And custody of the children we need to talk about, and double jeopardy. We're going to hit those things in just a minute, but this lady had a question to ask.
I did have a question. And my thing, it's a man and woman thing. It gets me so angry that this has been made into a racial thing. It was about a man who was very jealous. He took it too far, and he hurt his woman. And you don't agree? Wait.
I don't agree.
Stand up, because you guys have been tussling.
I definitely don't agree with what she said. She don't know he killed her or not.
She said hurt her. Evidence points to it.
What evidence? What evidence? What's evidence?
I mean, I've been
Were
reading.
you there?
No, I wasn't there.
I wasn't there either.
But wait a minute, but this brings up, this brings up an issue.
It's not about race.
Well, it's not about race, and it's also the man was called or claimed the verdict was not guilty. But it does bring up the question of double jeopardy that many people talk about. Excuse me, over here. I want to talk about the double jeopardy issue because many people do say if he was not guilty, then why are we even going through this whole civil trial? Alan, why don't you take that?
Yeah, there's a history of this, and the history is an interesting one because it starts in the South when blacks were murdered routinely by the Ku Klux Klan and white juries acquitted Klan killers. And so a Civil Rights Act was passed to allow the federal government to come in and try these people a second time. Now that's used sometimes in favor of blacks, like in the Rodney King case. Sometimes it's used against blacks, like in the Limerick Nelson case. And what we've had is a Supreme Court decision that says it's not double jeopardy if the federal government tries you after the state, or it's not double jeopardy if it's civil after criminal. And you know, something that can help the African American community sometimes can hurt them other times, and we have to have a consistent view on this. Either we favor a second trial or we don't, but we can't have one rule for whites, one rule for blacks, one rule for Jews, one rule for Christians, one for men.
Alan, don't you agree that it really, in substance, they're prosecuting them for the same crime? And Rodney King, that's the whole point. And Limerick Nelson, the same thing. They should have let the verdicts rest, whether we agree with it or not. It's the integrity of the jury system.
I agree with that. I agree there should be one trial, whether it's right or wrong. It's a better result.
Let's move now into the money issues because that's what this boils down to with the civil trial. Darnay, why don't you take this particular question about the bankruptcy? Can O.J. file for bankruptcy?
Oh, he can absolutely file for bankruptcy. However, he won't be discharged from this judgment because it's the result of an intentional tort. This happened in the Bernie Goetz case where there was a filing for bankruptcy. However, all O.J. will enjoy is an automatic stay, and that might be useful for him. It will prevent the collection on this judgment. However, he probably will be able to post a bond and not have any vigorous enforcement of the judgment in question. But he's not going to be discharged in bankruptcy.
accused of acting white.
I was ostracized. I was called an Uncle Tom.
The contact lenses you put in your eyes are obvious.
And he's accused of acting black.
What is acting black? Am I acting black?
I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know what acting black is.
What does it mean to act like another race?
Jesse, come back here and teach me how to walk black.
And why would someone want to do it?
I don't want to be black. You know what I'm saying? I'm chill with what I am.
Racial confusion on Rolonda. Comment from the audience here.
Yeah, regardless of how much money them people are getting, it's never going to bring them people back. It's wrong to retry him for the money. It's wrong. It's not going to bring them people back.
It's not about money. This case was not about money. This is not, Ro, this case wasn't about money. It was about the Browns and the Goldmans feeling that they hadn't had justice and they were trying to secure justice.
If it's not about money, then it really is double jeopardy. It's then an attempt to have the trial done over again in front of a different jury with a different racial composition. And if it's not about money,
can't go to prison.
It really is about giving them a second chance. Rolonda, I have to go. I'm sorry.
I want to make a point.
You know, and you can't imprison OJ, no double jeopardy.
Kim Goldman was asked today about the fact that people are making money on this case. Kim Goldman said today, money makes the world go round. So it is about money.
Wait, hold on a second. Let me.
I have to say goodbye, Rolando. I'm sorry, but I have to leave.
Alan, I want to just very quickly answer something for me.
Sure.
Very quickly. If we have not learned anything as Americans from this whole thing, what do you hope that we take away what do you hope we take away?
I hope we take away that, tragically, race and racism is still such an important and pervasive part of our American criminal justice system. We have to root it out at the police level, at the jury level, at the judge level. We cannot be a civilized society until we get rid of racism once and for all.
We have to root it out.
And you seem to have unanimous agreement here. I'd like to thank all of my guests for joining me. And we will keep covering this as things keep happening. Star, thank you so much. Leo, Bert, Pam, Darnay, and we will see you later. Another day. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Please stay tuned for more and join me on Twitter at Rolonda Watts and Facebook and Instagram.